Hello and welcome. The big breaking news right now, the construction of the new Parliament complex near Delhi's India Gate can go ahead. The Supreme Court said a short while ago in response to petitions that challenged the Central Vista project. We hold that there are no infirmities in the clearance given. A change in land use, a three-judge bench of the court said in a majority verdict. Remember, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had laid the foundation stone for the new parliament recently, but the government had assured the court that no construction would be done till the judgment is delivered. Well, let's go across to NDTV's Vaidya Nathan for more. Vaidya, tell us more about the judgment. It was a 2-1 majority judgment.
Exactly. See, normally what happens is in a case of three judges hearing a case, mostly one judge will write the judgment and give an opinion on behalf of the other two. Sometimes there may be differing opinions. So in this Parliament Central Vista case, of the three judges, two judges, Justice A.M. Kanvilkar and Justice Maheshwari have given one opinion, giving it the go-ahead. They said that all the approvals and even change of land use by the DDA, everything is valid. The recommendations of the environmental clearance by the ministry, that's also proper. But whereas the other judge, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, would be the Chief Justice at a later time, he held that the change of land use, he says, is a different opinion. It's bad in law. And he also said that the whole issue will have to go back to the Heritage Conservation Committee. So that's what he said. So the majority judgment, normally what happens, one will have to go by the majority judgment. So majority judgment has given a big relief to the government. So government can go ahead with the project. But there are certain conditions imposed by the majority judgment, which basically said that when the Parliament complex is being constructed, there should be more smoke towers and smoke guns should be used during the construction. These are the few things, and it also wanted the Environment Ministry to control the pollution during the construction. So now we will have to take the majority judgment. So it's a big relief for the central government. As far as the minority judgment is concerned, it will be only on the paper.
All right, Vaidya, thanks so much for joining us with those details. So that's the big breaking news. To talk more about this, we're joined by AGK Menon, architect, urban planner and conservation consultant, PKD Nambia, political analyst and someone who supports the BJP, Adil Singh Boparai, spokesperson of the Congress, and Tehseen Poonawala, political analyst who supports the Congress. But first to you, Mr. Menon, your reaction to this verdict today?
Well, I can't help but think it's disappointing. But as a Democrat, I say, well, in a democracy, we have gone through the process and the Supreme Court, the majority decision said, go ahead with it. I don't have to agree with it. And I don't agree with it on several professional, intellectual, and other grounds. That it is a bad decision, but they have gone through the due process. They have gone to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has said, okay. Now I have to live with it. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean that I changed my opinion. The change of land use was wrong. Building the new parliament was wrong. Entire Central Vista project is a problematic decision. So ultimately, it boils down to not a professional decision, but a political one. So this
right. So the Supreme Court held that the land use change was all above board, that there were no problems with it. Of course, the other issues about whether you feel there should be a Central Vista or a new parliament building, that is not something, or the merits of it is not something the Supreme Court has gone into, which is something that you're raising.
No, madam, I don't
about.
Agree with that. Even the third judge has cast doubts on the change of land use. There's a process to be followed.
Sure.
And that process has not been followed. They have changed the land use due to, because legally they've changed it. So one can't say it is not done. It is done.
No, it is done, but it was found to be above board, or there were no issues found to be in it by the majority judgment. But yes, there is one dissenting judgment as well.
That's something I stand by the judgment, because, that's what the Supreme Court has held. But that doesn't mean that I changed my opinion. My opinion still is that the change in land use was wrong. They did not follow the right process. For example, we have a master plan. Why do we have a master plan? Let's junk the master plan and let a new government come and say that we change the land use. And they'll do a due process and they say, yes, it's fine. They have to change the land use. It's all above board. Of course, it may be above board. But look at the whole thing. We are a democracy. We are a mature democracy. We have a master plan of Delhi. The master plan of Delhi says certain land use are there for certain reasons. Now, there is a possibility of changing it. I'm not saying it's written in stone, but to change it, you have to follow certain procedures. Those procedures are shortcut, aborted, and in fact completely made a mockery of. But they have done it. I agree. I agree with the judges that they've gone through the process. But as an individual, as I'm a planner, I'm a petitioner, I'm not satisfied.
All right. Well, let's go across to Mr. Nambiar. You've been talking about how this project is going to be a symbol, this new parliament building is going to be a symbol of a new India.
Precisely, Gargi. There are few issues. Let's forget about now, as since the Supreme Court has already come up with this decision and to given a go-ahead for the project. Now, few things which some of the opposition leaders and as well as some of the environmentalists are talking about is that this is going to make a huge economic issue for the country. This is not really the right time to go for it. And then there may be an environmental issue when this Central Vista project comes. On the contrary, if you really talk to the really experts, I have been following up this project from the very beginning. This project is going to make much better environment and these things for the Lutyens area and especially for the Delhi. The reason being today most of our ministries are functioning the age-old buildings and including our parliament, which is a colonial building which may be more than 80 or close to 100 plus years. So these buildings with the kind of time which we are living in, these buildings which most of our ministries are functioning, and I'm sure that you as a journalist must have gone to many of these buildings, you will be finding them, they are not up to the mark. These needs to be changed. And most of our ministries are functioning in different buildings, in different parts, bits and pieces. The Central Vista project is going to bring a lot of efficiency and bringing all these things together to make an absolutely a central secretariat.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Menon about that in just a moment, but Adil Bopara, your reaction?
Well, Gargi, I make my comments without, I must put this out with a caveat that I'm not got to findings of the judgment. But having said, the question which is put in public domain, whether this project was needed at all. We're in the middle of a recession. Mr. Nambiar cannot deny it. For the first time in the history of modern India, we're at minus 10% as far as GDP is concerned. There are mass layoffs. GST areas to the states have been withheld. Salaries of central government employees have been withheld. There are areas running into 2 to 3 months. So therefore, the policy question which arises is whether this project was needed at this point in time, whether one individual's sense of vanity should trump the economic realities of India. That's the larger question. And history will judge that question. Mr. Nambiar must be aware of this.
Well, let me get in Tehseen as
well. Where they can write rough over what is needed at this point in time.
All right, let me get in Tehseen as well. Tehseen, earlier, you were arguing with Mr. Nambiar. Mr. Nambiar raised the point about how this would, generate employment. There would be a big project, a lot of money would be spent, and this would, in fact, help many.
Gargi, I cannot but help laugh at these voodoo economists who turn up on television and say this will happen. The same arguments on NDTV were made by these voodoo economists with regards to the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel statue project. What happened? I quote NDTV, there was no money to pay salaries. It is not that you create a structure and suddenly the structure starts generating money or that's what happens. Mr. Adil is right. Today you don't have money to pay your government employees' salary. Why is that happening? Economy is contracting. For the first time in 40 years, the economy is contracting and you have the highest unemployment. Now, there's a sudden second part I'd like to address. Mr. Nambiar, and I quote him, says, most of the architects or planners endorse this project. On this panel, who is a professional architect, who says he doesn't. What most of the architects, in terms like most of the economists, endorse demonetization. There is no science, there is no rational, except the bullying, and like Adil rightly said and I said earlier, the emperor's wearing clothes and nobody has the guts to tell the emperor that no, he's not wearing new clothes. He's living in a narcissistic, delusional world which is actually harming India and harming the future.
I want to get Mr. Menon back here, to talk about the points that Mr. Nambiar raised about the need for the Central Vista project and how many of the buildings were very old and there was a need, to have a more modern structures, more efficient structures in place.
You see, I think what we're listening to is a statement of the problem and the solution by people who are not experts. There is a problem. I admit that there are problems with old buildings, but there's a way to deal with the old buildings. That's why we have a profession called conservation architecture, urban conservation. Now, in urban conservation, the principle is you look at the glass as half full, not half empty. Now, these people are looking at the glass as half empty and say, oh, get rid of it, do something new. We look at it as half full and say, well, how do we manage to make a better building, make it more efficient, make it better, and use less money? So, economics, everything comes into it. But basically, this is a heritage area. In a heritage area, we've got to go by certain protocols. Those protocols are, first, establish its significance. Now, here the party is saying, oh, it's an old building, get rid of it. But my God, it's just like saying, my grandfather is old, get rid of him. These are our heritage.
Argument that these are colonial buildings, and now we'll have some new buildings that will, use some more Indianized architecture and be a symbol of modern India. These are the points being put forward.
Precisely. This is where the whole thing falls apart. You mean to say colonial is not our history? You mean to say our experience of the last 1,000 years is not our history?
Gargi,
should we jump back 2,000 years and come back to the Indian of 2,000 years ago and say, well, that is India? Come on. The point is, we're a mature democracy. We're not a banana republic.
All right, Mr. Nambia, your response to that?
I think with the whole, I'm sure that Mr. Menon is Menon is an expert in its field, and I may not be an architect to talk about the real aspect of it. But I feel seriously sad for Congress, the people who supports the Congress on this panel, is that it really feels me sad that after 75 years later also, you have not been, 60 years you have ruled this country, you have not been able to create a new parliament building for India. And if Modi is trying to bring a new parliament building, which will be the aspiration of a new India, why do you have so much of problem? You are talking about
let's take that question to Adil. Your response to that?
1,000 crore rupees project. And today the Supreme Court has also upheld it. At least
the question which arises is this the right time to go ahead with an extravagant project? We're talking about 20,000 crore rupees. We're in the middle of economic recession. Central government employees, state government employees have not been paid for months altogether. All public schemes have seen a curtailment. What we really need today is a stimulus package where money is directly put into the hands of the people. Is this the right time to come up with such a vanity project? That's the question. This project could have come after 5 years, come after 7 years, when our economy is stabilized. The question is, Mr. Modi perhaps is suffering from the problem of misplaced priorities. His personal sense of vanity cannot overlook economic ground realities. Is Mr. Nambia saying that are we not in economic recession? Is this his case? Are we a booming economy today? We're the worst performing economy in the world.
All right, let's put that. So, Mr. Nambia, on one hand, yes, the Supreme Court has gone into how the permissions were granted and said the permissions were granted correctly. But obviously, they've not gone into the merits. That's something that's more political. So, your response to this, that how can we have such a massive project with so many thousands of crores, which are going to be spent at a time where we're under recession? Perhaps, as Adil says, that maybe in a few years from now we could have had such a project.
No, if that is the logic we have to apply what Adil is saying, let's stop all the projects what is happening in India. Let's stop all the highway project which is taking place. Let's stop all the construction work is happening all across, because we are sorry, we are on our economy is not doing good. There is a COVID situation, so there should not be anything which is happening. I am sorry to say that's a very, very bad economic logic in any standard in anywhere in the world. Any construction activity or any infrastructure projects is going to be one of the key element of an economic activity, which will bring not only employment, which will be both from the supply side and the demand side.
All right, I'm running out of time, so we'll just get quick comments from everyone.
And I think I am so sorry. I think I only can tell you one thing today, is that it's a victorious day. Even the Supreme Court has said that the Central Vista project is going to go.
Pay the state
Gargi,
fair share.
please can I have a line?
All right, let me
just
just
need one
allow Tehseen some closing remarks. Yes, Tehseen, go ahead.
Two very quick points. Number one, Mr. Nambiar is factually incorrect on your show. The highway projects actually have reduced, the spending on them have reduced. What Mr. Adir said
should be stopped.
So,
I asked Tehseen, should be
I cannot
stopped.
do this if he keeps interrupting. I don't interrupt. The highway projects actually reduced. The spending on them have reduced. So actually, the money spent on one man building a tunnel for himself to go to Parliament. I don't know how that helps economic activity. Point number two, he asked the previous governments why did they build a Parliament? Because the previous hospitals, colleges, universities, highways, airports, railway stations. Something Mr. Modi not. The only thing that made suits with his name on it and is making a private tunnel.
All right, we're having a bit of an audio problem with you, Tehseen. And final word to Mr. Menon. I'd like to get Mr. Menon in finally. Yes, there's a lot of politics over this and whether, the buildings, the Central Vista project should go ahead at a time like this is something that, is a more political argument. But at the same time, your final word on, the Supreme Court today has given a go-ahead in the sense that they found that the permissions were above board and now the new Parliament building and Central Vista project is going to go ahead.
So what I said was that, yes, democracy prevails. The Supreme Court has given a decision. I don't say that I'm not going to follow it. But my opinion is that simultaneously, they've destroyed the master plan. Simultaneously, they're destroying the economy. Simultaneously, they're destroying the environment. They're always mitigating efforts that you can do, put a smoke gun or whatever it is. They're mitigating factors. But the fact of the matter is that this project has created a problem. And that problem we are now trying to resolve. So I'm afraid it's just completely a political decision. It is not an architectural decision. It's not a planning decision. It's not an economic decision. And it's just not a democratic decision also.
Though some would argue that it is what the government, the democratically elected government wants. I'll have to end it there. Thank you so much all for joining us on the show and discussing this big development, a big boost for the government with the Supreme Court giving the go-ahead for the construction of the new Parliament complex and the Central Vista project, finding that there are no infirmities in the clearances that were given in the change in land use. Though I must add, it was a majority judgment. There was one dissenting decision. Time for us to slip into a short break. We'll get you more on the other side.